Morning, guys. Welcome to a new reading vlog. This is going to be a spoiler-filled reading vlog. This is going to be a spoiler-filled reading vlog. This is going to be a spoiler-filled reading vlog for Mistborn Secret History. It's not going to be a whole lot of vlogging to it because it is only 160 pages. But so I will kind of update you guys midway through, I guess, and then later on. Hey guys, Future Cleo just dropping in an extra spoiler warning for the beginning because I'm actually reading this out of order. In principle, you should read Mistborn Secret History after Bands of Mourning, because after the publication of Bands of Mourning is when Brandon Sanderson decided to write this story. However, if you don't feel like doing that, you can definitely read his book between Mistborn Era 1 and Mistborn Era 2 without it spoiling you for anything. Mistborn Era 2, I think it says mild spoilers. There's nothing in any case from my point of view of just having read it without reading Mistborn Era 2 that makes me go, oh, there are things that I know already that's go beyond the story arc for Mistborn Era 1, because the story definitely ends at the point in time in which Mistborn Era 1 concluded. So we haven't moved past that timeline, but perhaps we've introduced some elements that will pop up in Mistborn Era 2 as well. But so yeah, that is a long-winded way to say that if you want to be spoiler-free for Mistborn Era 2 completely, not a single chance of you knowing a single thing that might at some point be a reveal in Mistborn Era 2 that you could already have in reading Secret History, then steer clear of it. Apart from that, you won't get the idea that you're getting like a lot of information that you shouldn't have yet if you do dive into it after Mistborn Era 1, but definitely read this one after Mistborn Era 1, because basically it reveals everything about Mistborn Era 1. Every single mystery, every single secret is in Mistborn Secret History. So do not dive in if you haven't read Mistborn Era 1. So, Mistborn Secret History, as a last reminder, spoilers are going to be in here, so which starts with the full premise for this. I mean, I don't even know the full premise for this, but so, going into spoiler territory now. Mistborn Secret History is the story of what happened to Kelsier since his passing away up until the end of the Mistborn Era 1. So I'm not entirely sure I want Kelsier back. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the character of Kelsier, but I was also not like, I didn't miss him for the rest of the series, you know? I think it made sense to have Kelsier die. It made sense for the story progression and for character development purposes, and I don't like the resurrection trope, so we'll have to see how Brandon Sanderson handles it in Mistborn Secret History, because based off of the idea, the pure idea that Kelsier is still around isn't necessarily something that I like automatically root for. I think he's probably like some sort of a, what are they called? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in this book. So yeah, I'm going to be diving in now because I'm in a little bit of a reading slump, and I feel like this short novella in the Mistborn series, which I haven't read before, is what's going to kind of like power me through it, is what's going to make me super excited and make me read like crazy for today, because I've really missed that feeling. I've been really struggling with picking up books or, you know, feeling like reading or something like that, not letting other things distract me. And so, yeah, I want to just focus on reading and finish a book, because it is a readathon. I want to get a whole lot done this month, and so far things are not looking great. Not for in, but we're already enjoying it because we get to see Kelsier and Preservation have a discussion. And the fun thing is that Preservation isn't, you know, what I always think of when I hear that somebody is like resurrected is always that, like, you know, it's the will of the gods or somebody else wants it. But in this case, Preservation is just like trying to steer Kelsier towards the afterlife, and it's Kelsier who's basically treating it as like just another job to try and stay somewhat present within this world. And so what I'm assuming at this point in time is that he's going to use one of those nuggets or whatever it is that they found in the Well of Ascension, because when they were at the Well of Ascension, there were some, like, was it in vases or something like that? I don't even remember where they were contained, but one of the containers was already used. So it will be Kelsier. Kelsier is the one who already used it, which is brilliant because that shows that it was already there in the Well of Ascension, even though this story hadn't really been written at that point in time yet. So those are just like fun things to kind of add on to one another. So far, very much finding peace with the resurrection trope in this case, if this is how it's handled. All right, a little bit further in, and so the nugget did not go to Kelsier. So but the nugget has disappeared now, and I don't know whether I know this person. So it was stolen by what? How was it called? The distiller? What was it called? The distiller? Why does distiller sound so stupid now? Like as if he's a whiskey distiller. I don't know what his name was. So there was this character who showed up, and at first I thought it was just gonna be like Hoid, but now he's been given a name, and I'm not entirely sure whether maybe I do know this name, but in that case, I cannot talk about that because that would be a spoiler. So I'm kind of doubting because we were given his real name by the god by preservation, but I'm not entirely sure now whether who this person is. I think something just clicked, so I think I know who. So I have to look it up in like 17 chart afterwards. But so when it comes to the secret history so far, I haven't really been super intrigued. It's been cool to see the combination with, the story that took place with Well of Ascension and see the sort of parallel that is in here. But up until now, Kelsier has been kind of trapped in the Well of Ascension. And so there's not a whole lot that he was able to do while there. And you also knew what we were waiting for. You knew we were waiting for what happens at the end of the book, The Well of Ascension. I think it's interesting to see that it was him who kind of tried to trick Finn, who tried to get Finn to take the power in the Well of Ascension in order to keep Ruin trapped. I think that is an interesting dynamic, and these sort of things are needed to keep this type of story interesting. But I am more looking forward to the part that I'm going to be diving into now, which is kind of what happens next, because now Kelsier is free, he can move about again, and so I'm expecting there to be it to be less passive and to be more of an active storyline again at this point in time, which is going to hopefully also interest me a lot more than it has so far, because it's been nicer than I imagined. I mean, I've been liking the way in which we've handled this whole sort of Kelsier staying alive part. However, as I just indicated, it's not like I'm super intrigued with where the story is going so far. So hoping that will change as we go further through. I'm about a third of the way through at this point in time, I think.
I never think, I never know. I'm stuck and left alone. I've been lost, I've been fine. My cause is not defined. Won't you kiss me? Won't you play? Won't you draw me? Ain't no way I could deny you, I could stray. Won't you kiss me? Ain't no way. Won't you?
Alright, it's 5:30 and about to start the final part of Mistborn Secret History. So Steph is doing some impromptu reading sprints, and that's really kind of helping me along with the motivation here, or with the discipline, or whatever it is that I'm needing at the moment in order to actually read. But so yeah, I'm about to start the final part, and we just had this sort of like secret society or something that is living in what is the Shadesmar version of this planet, and I don't know what the deal is with these guys. Like, are these part of the Ghost Blood because they're called the Ire, or is this just another organization? Because they clearly are aware of multiple planets, and they have contact with multiple planets in any case. One of them comes from the world in which Elantris is set, for example, because he used the expression merciful domai, which is what is often used, which is like the sort of like god figure that is revered in Elantris. And then they also mentioned two other planets within their discussions. So it's very interesting. Like, I have no idea who these people are. And it's very interesting to see that this was also going on in the background of, Mistborn, of this world. So very interested to see what we will see popping up with those elements later on within this one, but also later on within the sort of like whole of this whole Cosmere adventure. Hey guys, I finished it. So, my overall judgment is gonna be meh. I think it doesn't really work all that well as a novella. I think in the postscript, Brandon Sanderson kind of indicates that I guess there's something that happens in a later book in which I guess we find out that Kelsier is still alive for the first time, and so he wanted to give the backstory to that. And tell kind of the story of how Kelsier stuck around at that point in time. But because it is so heavily ingrained with the storyline of Mistborn Era 1, and basically you already know that everything is going to work out well, and you kind of know already the plot twists and things like that, so you can predict most of it. I don't think it worked very well. A lot of time it kind of reminded me to some extent of, like, you have this episode of Buffy in which, like, Xander, I think it is, has like this whole separate adventure to the rest of his friends, and you kind of see him bump into his friends from time to time, but his friends are kind of like avoiding the apocalypse or something like that while he is having some crazy adventure of his own. And so it kind of reminded me of that in the sense that we are looking at Kelsier, who has this crazy stuff going on, whereas none of the other characters of Mistborn Era 1 are aware of what is happening with Kelsier. However, what Kelsier is doing is so deeply ingrained with Mistborn Era 1 that it just felt like the only way in which this storyline worked was if it were ingrained into Mistborn Era 1. And I can understand that that wasn't the case because of page count, for example. Page count for Well of Ascension and Hero of Ages is already way too long. Plus, if you're gonna add Kelsier's story into that big epic story, it might drown itself within that expensiveness. But basically, within this separate novella, it didn't do all that much to me. It was nice reading it. It was interesting seeing what he was doing, how he was helping that plot along. It was interesting to see these sort of elements from these sort of like unsolved pieces of the puzzle of Mistborn Era 1 and see that those connected to Kelsier's story, for example. And I think the value in this novella is more like elements that it introduces, bigger world elements, bigger Cosmere elements that potentially will play out at a later stage within the Cosmere. But on its own, it was just fine. It was okay, but I didn't really have that sort of Cosmere feeling with it because I have just read this story, and so I basically just reread it now from a different perspective, more or less, and that doesn't really work for me. And also, I must say that I also thought it to be a bit cheesy. I think a lot of scenes that were supposed to land, that were supposed to have an emotional impact, I just considered them to be so cheesy. I was just like, "Oh, this is like this is the way an American blockbuster would have this scene play out so that we can have the sort of emotional aftermath of what has taken place." Whereas I really love that in Mistborn Era 1, we basically just like let the events speak for themselves. I kind of like the fact that we don't have a sort of massive, oh no, that just happened moments, but rather that we see this happening, and so we as a reader can put our own emotions into it if we have them, for example. Whereas here I feel like it's just milked. It's milking the emotional aspect of this story. So yeah, that was another element to this that didn't really satisfy what I would have liked from this story. I would have liked a lot more of Kelsier being separate from the story of Mistborn Era 1. I think my favorite part of this one was the part in which he's going to the, I don't even know where he was going, where he's going far away from the final empire, when he's in the cognitive realm and he meets up with this Ire group. I think that part is the most interesting because it is quite separate from the rest of Mistborn Era 1. I mean, it still has that tie-in because it's still like he's going there to find a possible solution. However, it's also a story that we know nothing about, that we haven't had any sort of information about within Mistborn Era 1, and as a consequence, what happens there is also more thrilling, more engaging to read about as a reader. So yeah, I mean, I am of course happy that I read it because, you know, now I know that side of the story, and if I ever reread Mistborn Era 1 again, then I'll also have, by that time I will have already forgotten all of this, but if I were to reread it right now, I would have that background knowledge going into Mistborn Era 1, and I guess if I'm gonna reread it now, I'll have some vague memories at some point in time, but yeah, you know, it didn't fully work for me. That's all I can say. But so yeah, this is going to be a very short video, I guess, in total. But I really just wanted a spoiler-filled video to talk about it because, you know, this is really a novella that I can say nothing about without revealing spoilers. So my wrap-up for this is also just going to be like very, very vague. But I want, this way at least, even if nobody watches this video in the end, this way at least I feel as if I've been able to discuss my feelings about this book with somebody. But so yeah, that'll be it for this reading vlog. Next month I will be diving into Mistborn Era 2. No idea what I'm in for. I mean, no idea whether I'm gonna like it or not, because I know a lot of people don't really. It has a very different vibe from Mistborn Era 1. And Mistborn Era 1 vibes are really the type of fantasy that I like. And it's gonna be kind of like steampunk western style, which I don't think is really my taste, so we'll have to see how it goes next month. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and see you guys for a future one. Bye!